Hello and welcome back to Cooking with Suzanne. As you may already know, we've decided to work through the alphabet in regard to what dishes we're going to make. And today I've decided to, with the letter C, make a cauliflower chowder. And the chowder, as you well know, has usually potatoes in it. But this particular chowder that we're going to make, I have replaced the potatoes with cauliflower. So our other ingredients, of course, is bacon. And quite often you'll see a nice clam chowder, so you could have seafood in it. We're also going to put seafood in our chowder, but we're going to do it with shrimp. Another nice addition could be scallops. Cauliflower and scallops go beautifully together. So let's just first talk about the bacon, and then we're going to go ahead and get started on our soup. I mentioned in another class that you can take your bacon and just put it on a sheet pan on a cooling rack and put it in the oven at 375 until it's nicely cooked. This took about 25 minutes, a little bit more than 20, about 25 minutes, and it's perfectly cooked, as you can see. So I'm going to use the fat to make our soup. However, if you don't want to use that fat, you can certainly saute your vegetables in butter, or you can use olive oil. If you choose not to add the bacon, of course you're not going to use the bacon fat, but we are going to use it here today. I just want to let you know that I have my pan heating up and my bacon fat is in the pan, and to that I'm going to add my onions. I have some very nicely, just one onion, good medium to medium large onion, fairly small dice I have here. So I'm just going to throw it in the pan. And then I want to talk about our liquid. And I'm just going to do something a little bit different just so that we get through this in a fairly decent amount of time. Normally you wouldn't have to do what I'm going to suggest here, but so that we get this done relatively quickly, I'm going to heat up my stock. And this particular stock, I'm using chicken stock with some heavy cream. So I have 4 cups of chicken stock, and to that I'm going to add 2 cups of heavy cream. And I'm going to set this on low to heat this up so that when we're ready to add our liquid, it'll come to a boil fairly quickly so then we can simmer the soup. So I've got that on low. Now I'm going to raise the heat for the chowder on high and get our other vegetables in here. I have onion, I have carrot, and I have celery, which in the culinary world is known as mirepoix. So, and that's all that it is. It's finely diced celery, carrot, and onion. So to the onions, I'm adding our carrot. This is 2 fairly large carrots, nicely diced, and 2 celery, 2 stalks of celery. So let's put that in. I would say that with a chowder, celery is also pretty important in a chowder. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a stir. And of course, what I'm doing here right now is sweating the vegetables. So when you sweat the vegetables, you're not looking to brown them. What you're looking to do is extract the water out of the vegetables. We're not looking for any color. So when you want to do that, you would add salt to your vegetables now, and that helps to extract the water out of the vegetables. So I have some kosher salt, and I would say that you can start with about a teaspoon of salt, or a half if you want to go a little light. So let's just season with some kosher salt. And you can hear it sweating. You hear the pan? It's sweating very nicely. This takes about 5 minutes. If you were very busy and you had a lot of other things going on and you couldn't really watch it very well, you could always lower the heat and cover it and sweat your vegetables that way. But if you're right here in the kitchen and you're right on top of it, you don't really need to cover it. I'm going to take the bacon now. 4 slices of bacon is plenty. I think I did about 5. But 4 slices of bacon is more than enough for this recipe. And it is 1 head of cauliflower. So I'm just going to, you don't want to dice this too small. You want to be able to taste the bacon when you put it in the soup. So I would say, well, also, a lot of people would call this lardons, which are about 1/4-inch strips of bacon slices. So here we have our bacon. And just put it in here so you can see it. You want to really be able to taste the bacon, so don't chop it too small. So there we have that. Okay. And now we can talk a little bit about the cauliflower. This is 1 head of cauliflower. And basically, I always say that when you have your soup, especially a nice hearty soup like this, when you take your spoon into your soup, you should be able to get all the vegetables, everything on 1 spoonful. So everything should have a pretty nice sized dice so that you can get the bacon, get the cauliflower, get the shrimp, everything into 1 mouthful. That's my idea of a perfect soup. So here's our cauliflower, and I just wanted to show you that all you have to do is just kind of cut it up a little bit into some florets, as they call it. And this will be ready to go. And just to let you know, I'm saying about 4 cups of stock, 2 cups of cream. You may need a little more stock depending on how large a head your cauliflower is. This is a fairly large head, so we may need just a little bit more stock. We'll see. Now another thing I should mention is most people think of chowders as being thick and rich. Chowders are rich, and most people really do enjoy their chowder to be thickened. I have to tell you, however, that a true chowder is not thickened and should not be thickened. And I do believe that it was the days of Howard Johnson's. When Howard Johnson's opened up, they started making a chowder. They thickened it back in the 1950s, and it's been that way ever since. So if you really want, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can add some flour to your vegetables now and cook. You have to get that flour taste out. You really have to cook that for about 4 or 5 minutes before you go ahead and add your cauliflower and your stock and your cream. We're not going to do it that way. When we get there, we'll talk about that then. So let's just take a look. I think I can go ahead and add my finely diced garlic. And there are about 2 tablespoons, two nice large cloves. I kind of showed you, this is a nice, fairly nice big clove of garlic. So I would say I have almost 2 tablespoons here. Okay, let's put that in. Now, I do like a little bit of heat. I definitely like a little bit of heat. Wouldn't you agree, Bob?
I would definitely agree. I have another question for you.
Yes.
So I see some recipes that call for all the vegetables, including the garlic, to be put in at the same time. So is that not the right thing to do?
Well, for me it is not. Maybe for some people they prefer to do it that way. They're happy to do it that way. I don't really like my garlic to get brown. It's very, very finely diced. It's minced. It's going to cook very quickly. Your other vegetables are going to take a lot longer to cook. The carrots, onions, celery takes longer to cook. So in my opinion, I like it better to add it towards the end. And at this point, I'm going to put in about 1/2 teaspoon of chili flakes. I do find that the flavor of the chili flakes is best to put in now, not at the end, so that you can actually get the heat a little bit in your mouth, really kind of in the back of your throat. And so that it's not so hot in your mouth, but when you finish having the soup, you can taste it a little bit in the back of your throat. Okay, so we have all of our vegetables. They look wonderful, and they're nicely sauteed. I'll just grab a little piece of carrot and taste it. And It's tender, so we're ready to move on. Okay, so here's our head of cauliflower. Hopefully our stock is getting nice and hot, and it is. So let's put in the cauliflower. Oh, I wish you could join us for dinner because there's a big pot of soup going on here. Okay, can I just...
Well, I think we have room for 2 more here.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, I have some, well, if you've taken or watched a couple of the other classes, you know how much I love thyme. I have about a tablespoon. There's about 3 sprigs of fresh thyme. I'm putting that in with the cauliflower, giving that a stir. Oops. Let's get that one in. Give that a stir. And now we can go ahead and add our stock and our cream to the pot. Okay, let's shut this off. This is nice and hot, so it's not going to take too long for it to come to a boil. There we go. So you really do want the liquid to cover your vegetables completely. So if they're not completely covered, that means you might need a little bit more stock. Okay. A lot of times with chowders, they'll have you put the bacon in at the very end. I love the flavor of the bacon in the soup, so I throw my bacon in now because I really love that flavor, that nice smokiness. If you don't like that, you can sprinkle a little bacon just on top of each bowl of soup if you prefer to do it that way. So here goes our bacon. This looks great. Okay. So with this size cauliflower, it was a pretty big head. I would say that instead of 4 cups, I probably used about 6 cups of stock to about 2 cups of heavy cream. And now I'm going to just put a cover on this to try to get this to a boil quickly. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to lower it uncovered or covered if you want. Don't cover it completely though. For about 15 minutes until the cauliflower is nice and tender, okay? And then we add our shrimp at the very end because we want the shrimp to stay really nice and tender. So the only other ingredient we have for our soup is some fresh parsley, which we will add at the end. This is just freshly chopped parsley. Hopefully you can see that.
Hello folks, your wine director is back. So for the first course, Suzanne mentioned we traditionally offered soup, which was the case, and we also typically offer a sparkling or champagne to go with the first course. Champagne or sparkling wine is a wonderful palate opener, if you will, and whoa,
that's a good one.
And that came out very, very quickly. I was going to show you how to open it correctly. That wasn't as correctly as it should have been. You want to open it up fairly slowly to keep the effervescence in.
Yeah.
And that was,
bubbles in.
This was stronger than my hand today. So my apologies.
Yeah. So at the restaurant, there are so many wonderful sparkling wines in the Finger Lakes. You can talk about those a little bit, right?
Sure. So, so first of all, what's the difference between champagne and sparkling? Sometimes people call everything that has bubbles champagne, and that's fine. You can call it whatever you want. So champagne is only from the region in France called Champagne. If you make it in California, New York, wherever else, you can't call it champagne, you call it sparkling wine. It can still be made in the same process. And you have it's under pressure and you have a cork like that, but it just can't be called champagne. So one of the wines that or sparkling wines we really loved in the Finger Lakes was Swedish Blanc de Blanc. What's interesting about the wine is that the grape was actually developed at Cornell for the Finger Lakes wine industry, and the grape is Cayuga White. And it's a wonderfully balanced sparkling wine. It's got a lot of toasty oats to it. It's not bone dry. It's also not sweet. So we found, from a food pairing perspective, it went with just about everything. every soup that we offer.
Yeah.
And it was very pleasurable, very tasty. Who doesn't like champagne? And really opened up the evening for the next 4 courses.
And I believe Dr. Frank and Ravines also made beautiful sparkling wines, and there's probably other wineries in the region as well.
The last thing that I wanted to mention about sparkling is Suzanne and I had the opportunity to go to the Champagne region of France some decades ago. It seems like a life ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, we went to a champagne house, as they call it, called Tattinger. That's what we called it, because we're not too knowledgeable. We're simple folk, not too knowledgeable people. So we walked in. There's a beautiful, beautiful building, and everybody's in suits, and it's big time business. Champagne is big time business in Champagne. So, anyways, we did the tour, and it was lovely. And at the end, we did a tasting. And Tattinger in France is Tattinger.
That's right.
So if you want to feel like you're impressing somebody, they probably won't know, but you could say Tattinger. If you order Tattinger, you'll still get the same bottle of wine. So don't worry about it.
That's a good story. Yeah. Here you go. I'm going to give you that.
Great.
And we're going to talk a little bit about whether you want to thicken or don't thicken your soup. If you don't want to, just let it be. It's ready to go. If I could have the shrimp, Bob, that would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I have here is just a little cornstarch and water. Cornstarch, I made a slurry. It's really called a slurry. So I'm just going to thicken it a little bit with some cornstarch and water and let that cook for, you do need to cook that out as well. Not as long as flour, but you do need to cook it out. So the soup is ready. 15 minutes is perfect. In order to use a slurry like this, you can't add it to your soup cold. The soup has to be hot, because as you add this slurry to the soup, you can watch it thicken. If your soup was cold and you added this, you could add a ton of this before you realize you added too much. So here my soup is nice and hot, it's simmering, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a little slurry. Hopefully you can see that, until I get to the consistency that I'm looking for. Okay.
I'm just going to interject one more item about sparkling or champagne. Is you want it to be really, 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 really cold. Suzanne doesn't like me to say really, really, but extremely cold as you can get it, because it's just the right temperature to drink it. As champagne or sparkling warms, it's just not as vibrant and exciting as it should be. So
that's true.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a half a pound of shrimp here. You could certainly go all the way up to a full pound. If you want a lot of shrimp in there, definitely. I've done it with a pound. If I had a pound of shrimp, I absolutely would have put a pound in here. But I only had a half a pound, so that's what I'm going to use. This is peeled, deveined, and clean shrimp, which today now you can get it that way. You don't even have to do any of that yourself. And these are like, I think they're 26 to 30s, or because we're going to chop this up a little bit, you don't need, extra large or jumbo shrimp. Just, medium to large is definitely enough. Okay, so all I do is just take the shrimp and cut it in thirds. That's all. You want to have a nice piece of shrimp, so that you know what you're eating. So I have some nice pieces there, right? You can see that. Nice piece of shrimp. All right, here's our little trick. The minute you put your shrimp in, you shut off the heat, cover it 3 minutes. Your shrimp is perfectly cooked, nice and tender, and you won't overdo it. It won't become rubbery. It'll be nice and sweet and tender. So I think I've cooked the cornstarch out plenty. I think we're in good shape there. So now I'll just shut this off, add our shrimp, and 3 minutes we'll be having a wonderful bowl of cauliflower and shrimp chowder. And the last thing that is going to go in here is the fresh parsley, but we'll put that in each serving. Okay, I stirred it up. It's nicely stirred. Cover it, and our soup is finished for us.
Yeah.
So with the soup, we're going to have some nice ciabatta, nice bread. Soup and bread just goes really, really well. So here is our beautiful chowder. Looks delightful. Okay, so here's our soup. We'll ladle it in.
It looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Always have a towel handy. Have nice clean rims, which I am a huge fan of. A little bit of fresh parsley. And by the way, the parsley really does add flavor. It's not just for looks. I know sometimes people think it's not for decoration. It really is because it's delicious. I'm putting a little bit of fleur de sel in there.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how beautiful it looks.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm just going to pour this last bowl of soup, and we will be done with our cauliflower soup.
We're not done, we're gonna eat it.
Yeah. There we go. And a little bit of fleur de sel. And we are done with our chowder.
Here's to
Here's to us.
Here's to us, here's to you.
Here's to you.
Here's to cooking with love.